This week's parsha is Parshas Miketz. I want to dedicate this week's Dvar Torah zechus for Eitan ben Batsheva Yahalomi, 12-year-old boy who was released from Hamas captivity. Seems to be from the more traumatized children, unfortunately. Talked about being beaten in the streets of Gaza by the adults there. And is in need of much Refuah Shelaimah. The Akeidah Baruch Hu give him physical healing, emotional healing, spiritual healing. May Akeidah Baruch Hu bring good upon him and upon all those who were released from captivity, all those displaced, all those still in captivity. May Hashem shower all of us and all of them with bracha and Yeshua. I wanted to explore with you an area of the parsha that I stumbled upon this week, which caught me by surprise. So there's a story in the parsha that we have of Yosef's brothers come down to Mitzrayim to buy grain during the famine. And Yosef sees them bowing before him, and the way the Ramban frames the story is that he realizes that this is a setup to the fulfillment of his dream, and what he needs to, the nevuah of that dream. So he starts treating them in a way to try to bring Binyamin down to fulfill the dream of the 11 bundles bowing down to the middle bundle. So Yosef begins to accuse them and intimidate them. And it tells us in the pasuk that he throws them into jail for 3 days as part of this, and tells them, "Don't come back without your little brother." And he takes Shimon captive after this. So Chazal tell us in this Medrash Rabbah in Sadi Aleph Zayin, Hashem does not leave Tzaddikim in suffering for 3 days. And this is what we find by Yosef and his brothers. We find by Yonah in the fish, Mordechai, and by David. So the Chazal are framing this, that this would be too cruel for the brothers to spend 3 days in jail. And similarly, that we find by Yonah when he's swallowed by the fish, that he's only in there for 3 days, because it would be too harsh for him to be there for more than 3 days. And it sounds from the Medrash idea, I don't know, I guess the Matan Torah addresses the question. These stories sound like some of them that they are the full 72 hours. Not sure exactly, maybe some of them are mixed as Yom Kippur, but there's this idea that 3 days would be too harsh. The way that Yosef explains it, based on the Torah, because then there's a chazaka, then there's a chut hamashosho b'meir. You not take, there's this idea that 3 days creates something which is harder to break. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want that. There shouldn't be that tzaddikim should be in the tzar for 3 days. And the story, the vart by Mordechai, that it says that on the third day she puts on the big day malchus. They're only suffering and crying like that for those two. She's only suffering and crying like that for those 2 days. And the third day already she's coming, the big day malchus. She's coming to experience Yeshua, because there's an idea that we don't want to be mechazik too much, that they should be b'tzara. Medrash comes at it as well in Medrash Nun Vav Aleph. It's talking by the Akeidah. It says, "Vayisa Avram on the third. Avram lifts up his eyes on the third day and he finds Har HaMoriah." The Medrash makes the same point of the idea that Hashem doesn't make the tzara for 3 days, that he's been wandering in pain, looking for in anticipation to find the Makom Akeidah. He finally finds it. Hashem makes him find it on the third day. And it says the same thing by Yosef and his brothers. Makes a few other applications, makes the application of Yonah, makes the application of Klal Yisrael before Matan Torah, the same idea, Vayhi b'yom hashlishi, that's on the third day, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives them the Torah, they only have this anticipation, this suffering of that eager anticipation for 2 days. It seems the way the Radal here explains it is because the third day is the most painful. It's a concept we find by Avram Avinu and his bris milah, that there's an idea, I guess, that the compounding and how it accrues up, and then you end up with the most pain on the third day. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu protects the Tzaddikim from that. So applying it back here, that's why the brothers were not kept in jail for full 72 hours. Hashem lets them out after 3 days. So one question I had on this was just that the way the Torah frames the story of Yosef and the brothers, very few people read the Chumash and they're rooting for the brothers. At the end of the day, the Torah frames this very much as they mistreated Yosef, and now they're getting, in a certain sense, Yosef is throwing them into jail to try to bring them to tshuva and to try to bring the fulfillment of what's supposed to happen. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the Medrash is telling us, Hashem is saying that this, at the end of the day, they're tzaddikim. And in real time, this is 13 years after they sold Yosef. And now in real time, they're tzaddikim, and they're here, and they're b'tzara because they're being thrown into jail. And to appreciate the Torah doesn't views this as these are tzaddikim, and they don't deserve to suffer more than they should. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes sure to keep it that it shouldn't be more than 3 days. It shouldn't be this full time period because it's not fitting for tzaddik, because Hashem doesn't want tzaddikim to have to go through excessive suffering in this type of a way. Obviously, there are times where we have gezeras on Klal Yisrael and tzaddikim go through suffering, but this wasn't one of those times. This is a time where, in the normal course of events, it should be limited because they're tzaddikim and because they don't deserve this. Just, for me, it was a whole different paradigm on how the Torah is approaching the story of Yosef and his brothers. It also struck me about it that that in this story, are they really in danger here? This idea of the Eitz Yosef, that it's like going to create a chazaka of danger. Are they really in danger? I mean, Yosef is in control here. It's not some evil despot, and these are his own brothers. Of course, he's not going to torture them excessively. Why do they need that special thing? It shouldn't be 3 days, so as not to create a chazaka. I was thinking, is it different from Yonah? Yonah's in the fish. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu doing this. Does he need that special thing? It shouldn't be 3 days. It shouldn't create a chazaka. I was thinking, what about by Achashverosh and the story of Purim? Is Hashem less in control? Is it different? I mean, this is the idea that it could, even though HaKadosh Baruch, it's always through HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there's this idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu limits it, even though it would seem from us like, are they in danger? They're in as much danger as any other situation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts it that Hashem should limit the suffering, A, so they shouldn't have to suffer as much, and B, to keep them in that form of safety. It's to me a very fresh perspective on the story of Yosef throwing his brothers into jail and how the brothers are viewed as tzaddikim and Hashem is protecting them in this form in this specific story. I'd like to close with another idea contained within the Medrash in Nun Vav. It said, the Medrash mentions, again, it starts off by talking about Avraham Avinu is suffering for these 2 days until the third day when Hashem finally shows him where he's supposed to go to do the Akeidah. The Medrash quotes a pasuk in Hosea, Yechayenu miyomayim bayom hashishi kimenu v'nechi lefanecha. I will give you life again from those 2 days. On the third day, I'll rise you up and you'll live before me. Medrash quotes this pasuk later in the context of the pasuk. It's saying some idea that Tchias HaMesim is considered like it's going to be on the third day. Not sure exactly what it means. There's a vart we say in Shir HaMalos before benching on Shabbos. We say Hayinu Kechomem, that the time that we were in Golus will be like a dream. And people ask the question, it's a pretty difficult Golus, and there's an answer maybe given that compared to the beauty we'll have after the Geula, that all these terrible sufferings over this time, they'll be like a dream. They'll be so fleeting compared to the beauty awaiting us. So maybe that's the pshat in this idea of it being like 2 days. Sure. But anyways, over at the beginning of the Medrash seems to be applying this pasuk about Tchias HaMesim on the third day, tying it directly to Avraham Avinu at the Akeidah. And I saw quoted from the Gra and the Dubna Maggid a fascinating idea that they said that in general we have a Gemara in Kedushin says that Schar Mitzvah B'Hai Amalekah. We don't have reward for mitzvahs in this world. So the Vilna Gaon explains, we do seem to find that we get reward for mitzvahs in this world. He says we're not getting the reward of the mitzvah. The reward of a mitzvah is too great to ever bargain for and trade for anything in this world. We're getting the reward for, I guess you would say, the hechsher mitzvah, the stuff that we did to prepare for the mitzvah and to try to accomplish the mitzvah. And he says, so the Torah goes into great lengths by the Akeidah of these 2 days, and now Avram is coming with Zriyas and all these things, because all the reward we're receiving for what Avraham Avinu did at the Akeidah, that's all the prep for the Akeidah. The actual reward for the Akeidah is reserved for the next world. And that's one of the lessons they learned from this Medrash. And to me, it's just, you think about how much we invoke the Akeidah during davening and just how much we benefit from it, to the idea that that's not even the main reward for the main mitzvah, it's the reward for the hechsher mitzvah, to give us a tiny inkling into the reward in store for doing great mitzvahs, just the piles of schar awaiting us. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring us Yeshua and bracha, may Hashem enable us to see the world through the framework of the Torah and gain schar from what we do, and may we be zoche to brachas and Yeshua's bekar. Have a wonderful Shabbos.